computer. Okay, so hi Laura. How are you
Hi,
today?
good. How are you?
Good. Laura is here with me. My name is Ardis, and we're going to do a world peace hologram. And we've chosen as our topic something to do with Mr. Rogers. Laura and I both saw the documentary recently that was done on his life and his career on PBS, and we were both very taken by it. We've been chatting back and forth about it. And it occurred to us that he might be a really good topic in the crazy world we're living in, to, in his own way, help us all get in alignment with world peace. Because if we think about his message, it's a wonderful day for a neighborhood. It's a wonderful day for a neighbor. Will you be mine? I mean, it was so simple, that lead in. And I love the deliberateness of it. He'd come in with his street clothes on, and he'd sit down and he'd take off his jacket and put on his sweater. And he'd take off his street shoes and put on his sneakers. And he'd tie them one at a time. And I remember when my son, who's grown with his own children now, was little, he and I would just be riveted to this repetition, this routine that Mr. Rogers would go through every single day. And I'm amazed that it was 50 years that his programming was part of PBS, and I think other stations before that. That talk about an eternal message. Amazing. Now, your little one, who will be 4 in February, Laura, does he know about Mr. Rogers? I think it's still probably on rerun somewhere.
He does. It's actually on Amazon.
Oh, wonderful.
Actually,
Wonderful.
find an app, and they have, I think, pretty much all of his episodes. So yes, my son knows of Mr.
He knows
Rogers.
Mr. Rogers, and he goes around singing the little song, "It's a wonderful day in the neighborhood." I mean,
Not
I
yet.
love that song.
Not
Oh,
yet.
it's so special. My littlest grandson right now is just 1.5, and PBS has a new kind of version of Mr. Rogers. I think it's called Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, or Tiger
This
Daniel,
one.
some version of it.
Yep.
But it's the
Yep.
same song, but with no new words. So that message just keeps going and going. So kind of in our conversations and in thinking about it, I've come to the conclusion that it's the simplicity of his message of pure love and kindness that has allowed his teaching and his philosophy to endure. And
Mhm.
I've been reading a lot of articles about how complex his thinking was around
Mhm.
every word and every phrase used in those shows. I mean, there was one episode where a nurse was going to put on a blood pressure cuff, and she made the impression that it was going to be squeezing until it felt like it was going to explode. And he felt that was too jarring for a little
Mhm.
child's mind that takes everything very literally. So the language was changed. So very interesting, incredible amount of thought and training behind that feel good message of love your neighbor, they'll love you, be kind to everybody, the way you treat someone the way you want to be treated, etc. So just a beautiful man, a beautiful soul, and a beautiful light. And at times it feels to me like we live in such darkness in this world right now. Pockets of light are always everywhere, and as Einstein says, there is no dark, it's just the absence of light. So I was thinking maybe we just need to reignite the light. And between us, what we know about physics is if we can get resonating with more light, then we're going to radiate that energy out to everyone on the planet. And that's what we do with these world peace holograms. About once a month, we do them on different topics. And our intention is to sow the seeds to plant those neural pathways of hope and faith and possibilities that we can indeed change. We don't have to be enemies because our parents were enemies and their parents were enemies. And one country doesn't have to obliviate another country because they've always been enemies. That's old thinking. That's really old
Yeah.
thinking. We
Yeah.
know in our work, resonance repatterning work, that we can change anything, anything. So it's that sense of optimism, I think, is very much in harmony. And my dog just came in and sat down on the couch because he loves to get sessions. So if you have pets around, they're welcome to come in and join us as well as we do this repatterning together on Will You Be My Neighbor? I think that might be a good title, Laura. Will You Be My Neighbor? Okay. So I'm going to pull up a couple of quotes from Mr. Rogers, and I thought that might be a good place for us to start and just see which ones we resonate with and which ones we don't. So Laura, I'm going to say the words and then ask you just to repeat them, and then I'm going to check in to see if your energy is aligned with them or not. So you are you in this case, Laura, but you're also representing everybody else. So the weight of the world is literally on your shoulders here. Okay.
I'm okay with that.
You're okay with that. Say the world needs a sense of worth.
The world needs a sense of worth.
And it will achieve it.
And it will achieve it.
Only by its people feeling that they are worthwhile.
Only by its people feeling like they are worthwhile.
And that energy is not matching. The greatest gift you ever give is your honest self.
The greatest gift you ever give yourself is your honest self.
And that is not matching. As human beings,
our
job in life is to help people realize how rare and valuable each one of us really is.
Each one of us really is.
Each of us has something that no one else has.
Each of us has something that no one else has.
Or ever will have. Something inside that is unique.
Something that inside is unique.
To all time.
To all time.
And we're off for that. So these beautiful words, we're not matching.
Yeah.
We don't always succeed.
We don't always succeed.
In what we try. Certainly not by the world's standards. But it's not the honors and the prizes. And the fancy outsides of life. Which ultimately nourish our souls. It's the knowing that we can be trusted. That we never have to fear the truth. That the bedrock of our very being is good stuff.
That the very bedrock of
our being
is good stuff. Is good stuff.
And we always know we're off when we can't quite get the words out.
Yeah.
All right. And just see there's a lot here, so I'm just going to see if there's anything. This one might be helpful. I'm checking for our session. We live in a world in which we need to share responsibility. It's not easy to say, it's easy to say. It's not my child. It's not my community. It's not my world. And it's not my problem. Then there are those who see the need and respond. I consider those people heroes. Yeah. So we're off for all of these beautiful words, and we could, lengthen this session tremendously and do 20 more quotes. But I think we have the essence of this man. Making people feel special just because is what he's pretty much known for and criticized by some quarters for. I've read criticisms of that he was, in doing that, he set up the child that expects to receive rewards for doing absolutely nothing. And people judge that as bad. And he would say That's great. That's my intention, that you should be loved just for who you are. And you getting love and acceptance should never be tied in to what you produce.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. So one of the things that was most memorable to me during the congressional hearing portion of that beautiful documentary was when he spoke up finally after being told not to speak, right? Was it the senator? I don't know from where, but he'd been hearing and hearing from PBS their heart-wrenching stories of how they needed the money and what they needed the money for. And he pretty much put a halt to the preaching, as I think he referred to it. Mr. Rogers, you could see his face just kind of dropping, realizing that they weren't making any progress. And he broke through and asked, he said, even though you told me not to, I can't explain this. I have to use more than just 1 or 2 words, would that be okay? And what do you remember from that? Either do you remember what he said, or do you remember kind of the feeling that you got when you heard him speaking?
It's funny because I think I read it or they had it in the documentary and they said that he was scared.
Mm-hmm.
He sat there and he was in fear of speaking up. And he pushed through his fear, and it almost brought you to tears to hear his heart just encompass that whole space, and he spoke from his heart.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was ever a person who was so connected to his throat chakra and his heart chakra at that moment, it was like every ounce of him just breathed love. Yeah. Because he knew the importance of every word that he was about to say.
Yeah.
And it was his song.
Yeah.
It was his song that he said to the Senate.
It was his what? I didn't hear that.
It was his song. He spoke the words of the song that he sings about, there's no youer than you, that's truer than true.
Right.
I mean, and it was like, and you could just see everyone's face was like.
Yeah. And you could see the face of that very stern senator. Mm-hmm. You saw it transform. It's like you said, that throat expression connected to that heart energy, that message was so pure. And he was saying, you are good. You are valuable. You are precious to me because you are. Period. You are. And you saw the transformation in that senator's face. And they gave them, I think, more money than they asked for, if I'm remembering correctly. At least what they asked for, if not even a little more. Mm-hmm. So, I think there's hope that we can reach anybody. We can reach the terrorists. We can reach the people that really fight very hard against the world being at peace. Mm-hmm. If we could reach in and find the child inside that knows to know you are, the best version of you is good. You are good, Yeah, very, very powerful. I wept in that film. I really yeah, I was just tears. But it was like, nobody can hear enough of that. And there was such a genuine place inside of him. At least that's how I read it and felt it. There was not a performance that he was giving. It was very, very genuine. And just want to share some other just comments from this writer that's writing a book on him called The Good Neighbor, The Life and Work of Fred Rogers. And he talked about the placidity of his beliefs, and that he would flip them. I mean, he would come in with an agenda, but he was always so open and so into weaving the best possible outcome. And his only non-negotiable was really that he insisted every word, whether spoken by a person or a puppet, had to be so carefully examined, because he knew that children would be his audience, and they're very literal, as we said, in what they hear. So there were no accidents in what it ended up being. It was great pains taken, and I'm sure many very frustrated crew members and writing team members that just he made them crazy with his always wanting to make sure, is that the right word? Is that the right word? So I'm looking to see, there was one in particular of his crew came up with, after consuming a bottle of scotch, the writing crew came up with what they called Freddish. Let's talk about Freddish. This language, this loving parody of how demanding he was in getting all the words. But in this pamphlet, they talk about the 9 steps, and you and I talked back and forth a little bit about that. 9 steps for translating it into Freddish. So state the idea you wish to express clearly in terms of preschoolers can understand. Example, it's dangerous to play in the street. And he would say, rephrase it in a positive manner, as in, it's good to play where it's safe. Then rephrase the idea, bearing in mind that little kids don't make subtle distinctions and they need to be redirected. So ask your parents where it's safe to play. So you can see the layering down. Your parents can tell you where it's safe to play. And your favorite grown-ups can tell you where it's safe to play for the children that don't necessarily have parents. And he would say your favorite grown-ups can tell you where it's safe. So always sensitive. And you have to wonder, don't you, with what we study in resonance through patterning, what his upbringing was like. You know, right. What it was like. And I know he came from a rather wealthy family, and I know he was a little on the heavy side. So he was kind of felt like an outsider from, I've read that about him. But some people, I think, just have that ability to get inside a kid's head and know what they need to hear and how they need to hear it. And of course, he had a lot of study behind it. You know, he studied psychology with some of the top people in the field. And it was his life's mission to save children. But I couldn't help but feel, and they kind of indicated that in the film too, that a lot of it was him trying to save himself, you know, save his little boy self as well. All right, so I think we've covered kind of the history that we were looking at. And we have some statements that will stand throughout the session to begin to shift our energy so we come into alignment with that. And just in terms of looking at what do we need to shift, I think of shifting static. You know, what's the static that stands in the way of us really aligning with his messages? We all agree they're beautiful messages, but do we integrate those messages into our day-to-day life with our neighbors, in our community, in our country, on our planet that we share? Okay, do we do any of that? So for us right now, there's one repatterning that would be most useful that Laura and I could do together. There is, okay. So I have a long list. I have all the books handy, so it's nothing on this page. Something here, something here. So I'm getting at something from our new vision work. And the one we need is called Inner Light. That kind of dovetails with what we shared in the introduction, that he radiated such beautiful light all the time, all the time. So I've got the book, and now I just need to get to the correct page. Here we are. Okay, so I want to share with you, because I don't believe you've done this particular course yet, Laura, if I'm right. Just a little bit about the introduction, because I think it ties in very nicely with our theme here. And this is a story that I originally heard from Carolyn Miss, and then Chloe heard it over the years and put this in this new vision book. But it was a true story of a woman in a very serious car accident on one of the major highways in California, probably the 5 or the 405, as they're called by their numbers. And the traffic was backed up tremendously. And the woman who had been in the accident was critically injured, and the jaws of life were needed to extract her from the car. So you can imagine the backup on the freeway. And she told after the fact that she felt herself really coming out of her body, and hovering over her car, watching the paramedics and the emergency response people trying to get her out. She could see it, witnessing it. And she also told how she could feel the thoughts that the people backed up in the long line of traffic were expressing. And she said the majority were frustration or upset or anger that they were being delayed. And, you know, when you're so far back in a line of backup, you have no idea why you're backed up. So if they knew someone was being extracted with the jaws of life, their messages might have been kinder than thinking, you know, somebody, you know, just clipped a car and now 2 lanes are blocked and we've got to wait. You know, you just don't know what goes on behind the scenes. But all that she was hearing, she felt her energy being pulled to a car very, very far back in the line. And what was pulling her, she said, was the light was radiating out of this car. It was radiating from inside out. And she was drawn to the light. And just as she got close enough, she felt her body being, her essence, whatever we call this, being pulled back into her body. But what she recalled is there was a woman in that car praying for whoever was injured to be okay. So the prayer generated the light, and the light attracted this being to her. And she was being pulled now back to re-enter her body, and she was cognizant enough to catch the license plate and remembered it through her long hospitalization and recovery. She had a friend that worked for the motor vehicle department, persuaded that friend to give her a name and address, and sent flowers as a thank you for the prayers offered her in her greatest time of need. So that's kind of the introduction to this inner light patterning. It's not about being a Pollyanna. It's about choosing, isn't it? Choosing to have a thought. So some people in that situation were choosing to have the thought of frustration and delay and upset. No, I'm going to be late and I'm going to get in trouble, etc. And this one particular woman was choosing to pray for someone she didn't know and for what she didn't know. Okay, so it's very important in terms of our thoughts to realize the power in them, the power in those thoughts, because everything's a frequency, including the thoughts that are quietly inside your head or my head. And those messages are constantly going out to everybody. And it's either going to uplift, like it did in that case, or it's going to take your energy down. And our responsibility, according to Mr. Rogers, is to spiral people up, okay, to be a good neighbor, to be kind, to be loving, as much as possible. So what is it you feel, and you speaking as you, but speaking for the greater collective as well, so these may not all be your particular thoughts, Laura, but if you would share with me what comes up for you when you hear that story, what is it you're doing or not doing that you feel might be constricting your light? I'll start with you and then I'll ask what you think people in general might do that constricts their light. I'm going to put one while you're thinking. I think negatively when I'm in a charged state and I don't know anything to do about it. Okay, kind of thinking about that accident. So that's one.
What's coming to mind is what I've noticed a lot lately is the shaming and the judging that we're doing of each other. It's very prevalent nowadays, and it's, you know, it seems like if you're not doing what I'm doing, then I'm going to shame you for it because I feel that, you know, it's like you're not doing as good as I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I feel that really diminishes our light.
Yeah. Shaming and judging really does. That's very good. And I think the other is that I think people are scared. So
Yeah.
you think of how the migrants coming from South America through Mexico, the fear that has been generated that we're being invaded. We're
Hmm.
being invaded. You know, there's this energy of fear constricts everybody's life.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's life.
Because
And
you it makes you feel out of control. You
yeah,
have no.
yeah, I'm out of control. That's another really good one. And I think another thing, when not that we're focusing on the immigrants, but that kind of popped in my head, thinking of Mr. Rogers, what would he do with these thousands of people coming wanting refuge? Um, and again, it's not about being a bleeding heart; it's about being kind, isn't it? So I think what upsets people a lot is that you're going to take something away from me.
Hmm.
It could be my job, it could be my money, it could be my benefits. That there's this rampant fear that if I let you have something, then I lose something, right?
Right.
So,
Yes.
yeah. Any other thoughts come to your mind?
It's interesting because right before we were starting, I was kind of just brushing up a little bit, and I remember reading Mr. Rogers talking about our identities and how we identify ourselves maybe by our money or by the house that we live in or the job that we have, our disease that we have. You know, it's not about that. We're not, we shouldn't be identifying by these things.
Mm-hmm.
It's who are you? Who am I?
Yeah.
And I think that that brings up a lot of fear too. Like somebody may come in and take that from you.
Yeah.
That's a fear.
Yeah.
Who are you if you don't have the money that you
Mhm.
think that you have, you know?
Yeah. Good. I think we've got some really good choices here, and I'm checking that they are all primary.
Right.
So, what I'll do, just in terms of time, is I'll check one because we've been speaking them out loud, so everyone's heard them as we've been gathering them, and I'll check for one that can really stand for all the others, and that's what we call proxy. One will kind of carry the energy of all of them together. And it's actually the last one you said, so let's repeat that. I identify myself
I identify myself
by my things
by my things
rather than who I really am.
rather than who I really am.
And I'm afraid you're coming in to take something from me.
And I'm afraid you're coming in to take something from me.
Yeah. So you think of, when the Statue of Liberty was donated to us by France. And for decades prior to that, that was the port of entry for so many immigrants from Europe. And, give me your tired, your weary, your hopeless beings longing to be free. How we went in such a short amount of linear time from that perception, let me help you, which is a Mr. Rogers perception, to stay away, you're going to hurt me and take something from me. In a relatively short amount of time, we really spiraled down.
Oh yeah.
Really did. And we can't pinpoint it on one thing that spiraled us down. Sure, it's a combination of things, but it's dramatic. If you really
Hmm.
just think about it, it's really dramatic. I mean, my grandparents immigrated as teenagers from Ireland, it's most of us came from somewhere, if not all of us came from somewhere. And we were welcomed. Maybe, yes, there's always been discrimination. There's always been a certain amount of fear, limited money, limited resources, and you're going to get a piece that belongs to me, etc. Um, all right, so let's move beyond that. I don't want to make this about immigration so much as will you be my neighbor? I mean that's really the theme here. Will you be my neighbor? So I'm going to see what attitude is in the way of that. So is it frustration? Is it competition? We've got fear already. So it's unfriendliness.
That's
Unfriendliness.
perfect.
Well, Mr. Rogers would be really happy we're working at moving this away. And these are already written out for us, so we just have to write it down. And this is, I talk about other people's weaknesses to others. So we don't talk about the weaknesses directly, we gossip about it to other people. So I talk about other people's weaknesses to others.
I talk about other people's weaknesses to others
Rather than directly to them.
rather than directly to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not going to the source where we could heal anything, right?
Yeah.
We're just talking.
Right.
Uh,
We're gossiping.
that's where we're gossiping directly to them. All right, good. And that was the primary one. So the next is we need to identify the frustrated expression of feelings. So what do you think are some of the charged feelings people hold that keeps them from opening up to be friends, to be friendly? I mean, we are not meant to be alone and isolated. We're meant to be in community with other people, yet so many of us pull ourselves back. So what are the emotions that are in that pulling myself back?
I mean, I think that you've said the first one, that's fear.
Yes.
Guilt.
Mhm.
Um,
Insecurity. I'm
insecurity.
insecure. Yeah.
Yeah. I was even going to say unhappiness with
Unhappiness. Yeah. And I think underneath that too, there's a fear that if you know me, you won't like me.
right.
I don't know where that popped in. Mr. Rogers might have said that in my head. I don't know. If you know me, you won't like me. Uh, and
I mean, essentially, that's, that can come from a little child,
yeah,
you know,
and most of
or
these beliefs, yeah, most of these beliefs, as we know, do come from childhood.
they
And
do. It's that little child in us is
yeah,
hurt,
yeah,
and they're feeling judged, and they're feeling guilty, and they're in fear.
yeah. So a bunch of little kids that are carrying guns and the
Yeah.
capacity to push buttons that annihilate the entire population have not updated their files from when they went into kindergarten on day one and someone laughed at their shirt. Okay? So we're still coming from those very, very old wounds.
Mhm.
Say, I'm afraid,
I'm afraid,
guilty,
guilty,
insecure,
insecure,
unhappy.
and unhappy.
If you really know me, you won't like me.
If you really know me, you won't like me.
We're matching that.
Yeah.
Representing the greater whole here, we're matching that.
Yeah.
So that last part, if you really know me, you won't like me, really says, well, then hide.
Yeah.
Hide who you really are. And even when you connect, don't be authentic. And Mr. Rogers, if you could use just a few handful of words to describe him, one of them would be authentic. I mean, even in the face of his critics, he was always just who he was.
Yes.
I appreciate you reminding me because I watched that video when he testified in front of Congress. He was shaking. You could see it, and he didn't try to hide that.
No.
And maybe, Laura, that's what broke through to the senator. Maybe often the bully pulpit that people adapt, that gruff, rough and tough, is simply the cover for the scared little boy inside. So maybe because Mr. Fred Rogers showed his scared little boy, maybe the senator's scared little boy felt, I have an ally here, you know? You just really never know what you're reaching or how you're succeeding in reaching someone. We're going to see if there's any other frustrated expression of feelings. So it's here, it's again a list. This one makes a lot of sense in terms of this session. Say, I suppress my feelings
I suppress my feelings
and cut myself off
and cut myself off
from ever having my needs met.
from ever having my needs met.
Yeah. So if again in our childhood we decided I'm never going to get my needs met, like my sister or brother gets all the attention, or in school the smartest student gets the teacher's nod, or the someone that's good at sports gets all the friends, all these old beliefs, I can't get my needs met, cause us to stuff our feelings and cut ourselves off. And if we're going to heal and find the way to peace, we have to own our feelings, but we can't let them run us, right? And that's what seems to happen, is that they get so huge, it's like the feelings are running everything. Because there's no logic here to some of the things that are happening in the world. There's no logic to it. There's no justification to it. It's just over the top feelings, and then arming them with weapons so that they can act them out on another person, rather than honestly communicating, hey, this is who I am and this is what I need. And can we find a way here? Can we negotiate a little bit? Yeah, very good. And we're going to look now at the negative attitude that is overwhelming in this situation. Yeah, we're talking reptilian brain time here, Laura. Say, I can't survive.
I can't survive.
And we're matching that. So what does that tell us? If that's the underlying attitude, then everyone is viewed as what? A friend or a threat?
Oh, they're a threat.
Everybody's a threat.
Yeah. Fight. It's like fight or flight. Which
Fight
am I
or
going to
flight.
do?
Fight or flight. And exactly. I can't survive. Yeah. So
Wow.
I can't be real. I can't be authentic. I can't be your neighbor. I can't be your friend. I've got to be your enemy.
Yeah.
It's me or you,
'Cause
kid.
because there's no thriving.
No.
It's survive, and
Yeah.
that's it. It's the bare minimum. No. How can you have emotions if you're in survival?
Exactly.
There
And
is no emotion.
remember that survival response is the reptilian brain, and that's our primal brain. And the major characteristic of the reptilian brain is that it has no conscience.
Yeah.
And that's so interesting in terms of the world we're living in right now. So many people appear to be lacking any conscience. So when a thinking person tries to understand that, who has a conscience, remember the old Disney, the little grasshopper, Jiminy Cricket, that right from wrong, and when you're doing something that doesn't exist in this framework that we're talking about, does it? Because that's the objective. I step outside and say, well, that's not right. But instead of having that objectivity, we've got this energy of the reptilian brain saying, all that's right is survival. All that matters is survival. So it's me or you. That means I've got to eliminate you.
Yeah.
You're a
We are
threat to
not
me.
neighbors.
Wow.
Yeah.
That kind of synthesizes it, doesn't it? I love this process because you can just take these broadly expressed notions and synthesize it down to a list
Yeah.
of key statements. And then the next thing after the attitude is we look at how are we responding in this situation. And again, I have a list. Well, you'll love this one. Say, I am emotionally reactive.
I am emotionally reactive.
And then we also need the second part of this. I have no control
I have no control
over how I react.
over how I react.
I have no control. I like that one, over how I react. So anything goes, doesn't it?
It's quite a theme, this out of control. It's a theme with what we're running. Everything is out of control.
It is. And so what would Mr. Rogers say to a child feeling out of control? He wouldn't judge,
No.
and he wouldn't punish.
No. It's okay to feel what you're feeling.
Mhm.
You're allowed to feel what you're feeling.
Mhm. And then he would help you make it into something that was
Yeah.
manageable for you, right? So let's
Like there,
talk about it.
yeah, let's talk about it. There's an episode of his where because sometimes when kids get angry or frustrated, they use their hands. In
Right.
his episode, what can we do with your hands when you get angry? So it's finding something to do. Can you go build? Can you go make something? Turning your anger and frustration, it's okay to feel that, but what can you do with your hands?
Mhm.
It's like it helps to move that energy out
Right.
and start shifting.
That's beautiful. Let's put that in our session.
Okay.
With this. All right. Say it's okay to feel
It's okay to feel
what you're feeling.
what you're feeling.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
You don't have to hurt anyone when you're angry.
You don't have to hurt anyone when you're angry.
Let's find something else to do with your hands.
Let's find something else to do with your hands.
And we go right off for that. So imagine if the world could hear that in the moment that people are so out of control with their feelings, to hear that soft, calm, ideal father energy that he held,
Oh man, yeah.
being told, it's okay and you're okay, because he's already established that you're okay just the way you are. And it's okay to have feelings, whatever they are, they're all okay. And let's just talk about it and not hurt anyone. Just know that you're angry, it's okay.
Yeah.
Let's find something else to do with your hands would prevent them from grabbing a person or a weapon. I miss him. We need another version of Mr. Rogers to come around. And then the other thing that adds to the stress of all that we're talking about is we lose our sense of time. As we talked about, it's a short amount of linear time when we erected the Statue of Liberty. Give me your wretched, okay? And that was the mindset of this nation. It was also the mindset of the collective world at that time. I mean, we'd gone through World War One. Everyone was traumatized by that. As much as World War II gets a lot more notice, but World War One was an incredibly traumatizing event. And so the timeliness of all of this, there's a short amount of time we went from this to this to this with people. Stay away, stay away. We don't want you. We don't need you. You're a drain. You're a threat. I can't survive if you come. It's just a shift in the very way we look at it. We simply have to shift our focus. That's it. Just shift our focus and open up to new possibilities. And isolationism isn't the answer. It isn't the answer. And open borders isn't the answer either, but there's a huge amount of gray, isn't there, between those two extremes. Will you be my neighbor? Would you, could you be my neighbor? Yeah. So part of it is that we think the stresses that we're under in the world right now are going to last forever. Well, nothing does. Nothing does. Nothing. So getting an accurate concept of time. And what's happening is we lose hope that others will give me the help I need.
Yeah. Wow.
Say, I lose hope
I lose hope
that others will give me the help I need.
that others will give me the help I need.
Yeah. So we're definitely resonating with losing hope.
Yeah.
And we need to get anything from here. A lot of this would be more personal if it were a private session. So we need this. No, we don't need any of those. All right, so we're going to look at the natural expression of needs and feelings that would support us all being able to stay connected to our light. And it's a little bit of what we've already said, but it's just expressed a little different. Say, I express my needs and feelings.
I express my needs and feelings
In response to the behavior and actions of others.
in response to the behaviors and actions of others.
Free of judgment and blame.
Free of judgment and blame.
Yeah. We're off to that. So you're right on about that what we're doing is judging and blaming everybody, and there's just too much of that going on. And I'm sure Mr. Rogers, if he's in an aware state, is not very happy with the state that we are in. And here's our final statement from the book. I am loved.
I am loved.
I love.
I love.
Yeah. So, you know, in the 60s, the flower children got disparaged for living life with rose-colored glasses and everything's about love and let's go be kind and sweet to each other. It's kind of the same message Mr. Rogers is holding, but it really does come right back to that. And one of the big impediments to loving and being loved is that we don't love ourselves. And the biggest cause of that lack of self-love is our childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Our parents did the best they knew to do, but if they hadn't gotten the guidance from their parents and their parents hadn't gotten it from their parents, then all that lack of loving yourself got passed down generation after generation after generation. And you think of all the songs, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. You know, it's not a complicated message. Mr. Rogers didn't give complicated messages. They were very, very simple. Very, very simple. So we've gathered some information. We chatted a little bit. We put some quotes online. It all seems to come down to loving and letting go of that fear that is running us. When we let go of the fear, we can let go of the judgment and the blame and the shaming. If you don't have the same opinion as me, then I have to make you wrong so that I can feel right. We're not in kindergarten anymore, Laura, are we?
No.
We're not in kindergarten. And we don't have to have bullies on the playground because bullies are just wounded little people too, you know? So as parent that you are, and I'm now a grandparent, we have a wonderful opportunity to share this beautiful knowledge that we've gained about Mr. Rogers and what he stood for, and make sure that generations to come keep hearing these simple, beautiful messages that aren't solely his. I mean, we can find references to this in the Bible. We can certainly find references to this in a lot of psychology books. It's basic, basic, basic. But if the reptilian brain is running the show, then the higher brain that can sort things out and do what's right gets ignored. And then that's the cart before the horse, isn't it? So the higher brain is supposed to be leading the lower brains. But when I can't survive, reptilian brain energy is leading, then the higher brain has to take a back seat. And when that happens, chaos ensues. And that's a really good way to look at the world right now and see who's running what. Yeah. All right. You ready to shift this energy?
Of course.
Carry this load for the rest of the world? Okay. So when we come to shifting, we have lots of options here. So anything on this page, no. We need an energy contact option. So we need this, we need this, we need this, we need this, 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 this. Okay, we need to listen better. It's called memory listening ear massages. You remember this from your training, Laura. Ears are really important. I mean, a lot of the world's problems would be eased if people would start listening to each other. So that's on a very fundamental level. It makes sense why this would come up in terms of this conversation we've been having in our session. It also has hundreds, if not thousands, of acupuncture points in the ears and around the ears. So when you really free any stuck energy that is in your ears, you do several things simultaneously. So by releasing stuck energy, massaging the ears, pulling on them, you send a rush of blood to the brain, which is going to help you think better and hear better and respond better. If you pressing in the ears or pressing on hundreds or thousands of acupuncture points, then you're sending a cascade of energy to all the organs of the body. So it's all good. It's all really good and helpful. And it relaxes you, which can relax some of these charged emotions that are rampant right now. Okay, and it seems like holiday time only amps everything up more, regardless of your faith. Almost every religion has got something going on at this time of the year. Okay, so there's no right way to do it, wrong way. Just pull the ears so they're coming away from the head. And I like to massage them, move them around. Yeah, smooth them around. And I'm seeing you freeze a little on my screen, Laura, so I hope we're recording this.
Yeah.
Part of it, I hope, anyway. All right. And then just hold the ears, send that energy up to the brain and throughout the body-mind system. Breathe deeply, put the tip of the tongue on the roof of your mouth. That integrates the brain hemispheres. And as you breathe out the nose, just feel the release of tension that the body may have been holding. Good yawning is a great signal, Laura, that you've let go of some tension there. Okay, that is checking complete. So that was our input of energy or light that changes everything that is in our field. All right, so I'm going to look at some of those quotes and just take one that can stand for all the others. All right, Laura, you ready to be our proxy here? Say, we don't always succeed.
We don't always succeed.
In what we try.
In what we try.
Certainly not by the world's standards.
Certainly not by the world's standards.
But it's not the honors and the prizes.
But it's not the honors and the prizes.
And the fancy outsides of life.
And the fancy outsides of life.
Which ultimately nourish our souls.
Which ultimately nourish our souls.
It's the knowing that we can be trusted.
It's the knowing that we can be trusted.
That we never have to fear the truth.
That we never have to fear the truth.
And that the bedrock of our very being.
And the bedrock of our very being.
Is good stuff.
Is good stuff.
And that is standing for those several quotes you repeated at the very beginning of the session. So checking all of those together, and we are now in line energetically with that beautiful mindset of Mr. Rogers. All right, say, I think negatively when I'm in a charged state.
I think negatively when I'm in a charged state.
And don't know anything to do about it.
And don't know anything to do about it.
And that's now off.
Good.
If you are not doing what I'm doing.
If you are not doing what I am doing.
Then I will shame you for it.
Then I will shame you for it.
Judge you.
Judge you.
And this constricts my light.
And this constricts my light.
And that is now off. So our energy is not matching that.
Good.
I am out of control.
I am out of control.
And that is now off.
Good.
If I let you have something.
If I let you have something.
I lose something.
I lose something.
And that's now off. I identify myself by my things
I identify myself by my things
rather than by who I really am.
rather than by who I really am.
And that has shifted.
Okay.
I talk and gossip about other people's weaknesses
I talk and gossip about other people's weaknesses
to everybody
to everybody
rather than talking directly to them.
rather than talking directly to them.
And that has shifted. And we can really see that, how that plays out, can't we, in the world we live in? And now we're looking at the emotions. I'm afraid and guilty,
I am afraid and guilty,
insecure and unhappy.
insecure and unhappy.
And if you really know me,
And if you really know me,
you won't like me.
you won't like me.
And that has shifted.
Good.
I suppress my feelings
I suppress my feelings
and cut myself off
and cut myself off
from ever having my needs met.
from ever having my needs met.
And that has shifted. Good. I can't survive.
I can't survive.
Yeah, so we're off for that old reptilian brain statement.
Yeah.
I am emotionally reactive
I'm emotionally reactive
and have no control
and have no control
over how I react.
over how I react.
And that is off.
Good.
It's okay to feel what I'm feeling.
It's okay to feel what I'm feeling.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it.
I don't have to hurt anyone
I don't have to hurt anyone
when I'm angry.
when I'm angry.
We'll find something else to do with our hands.
We'll find something else to do with our hands.
Yeah, so kind of made it personal and out there at the same time. And we're on for that.
Good.
I lose hope that others will give me the help I need.
I lose hope that others will give me the help I need.
And that has shifted. I express my needs and feelings
I express my needs and feelings
in response to the behavior and actions of others,
in response to the behaviors and actions of others,
free of judgment
free of judgment
and free of blame.
and free of blame.
And we are on. So that's just really validating what Mr. Rogers said, that it's okay to have needs, it's okay to have feelings. And when other people do hurtful things, we don't judge them, we don't blame them, we just try to understand.
Yes.
And what a great message for the world right now. So our final statements say, I am loved.
I am loved.
I love.
I love.
We are on for that. Yeah.
Unconditionally, right?
Yes, lovely. Won't you be my neighbor? Well, he made a big impact in my life and in your life. And I think that documentary touched a lot of people. I've actually spoken to quite a few people that were blown away by that, learned a lot about him that they didn't know. And in his own quiet way, he changed the world for the better. You know, there's a wonderful song from the musical The Wiz. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
And it's the song, Because I Knew You, I've Been Changed for Good.
Okay.
And I think that song really, in its own way, could be tied right back to Mr. Rogers, because we knew him, and because through Amazon it's eternal now, that we can have generations that can know him, that we all have been changed for good. Yeah. Well, Laura, thank you for joining me today for this World Peace Hologram and our personal salute to Mr. Rogers. And will you be my neighbor?
Yes,
Thank
I will.
Thank you. Okay. And I'm